Hello, everybody. I am Willie Castello with L&L Contractors, your local contractor here on the square, Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And with me today, and I'm so gracious that he was able to join me for this conversation, Stacy Webb with Compass Insurance, a local agency here in Murfreesboro. And the reason I asked Stacy to be here with me today because I encounter so many clients throughout the week that clearly just don't understand what their insurance covers when it comes to their home, and sometimes their policy. And so I'm so thankful that he's come to help me because it is so important that people are educated on why you should actually know what kind of policies that you guys have on your home. And so, Stacey, thank you so much for joining me today.
Awesome. Yeah, man, I really appreciate it. And I think that, I don't think there's any really shame in it. Folks not really understanding.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, understanding insurance. It's not a particularly sexy topic. It's not something that people really spend a lot of time usually thinking about. And the reality is a lot of folks, it's a box you check, right? It's a box you check when you buy a home. You have to have it, for your financing purposes. And outside of that, you don't really spend a whole lot of time thinking about it and how it works and kind of how it relates. So I'm really happy you asked me to be here. Working for Compass Insurance Group, I have the benefit of being an independent agent and working with a lot of different companies. So I'm actually here to tell you, you may be with a larger insurance company and you're saying, well, this company is doing this differently or that differently, and you're mad about it. A lot of the companies are doing things a little different. Every company's doing things differently than they did a few years ago. So I would like to address that. If you've watched the news at all, and I know you're a big news watcher, Willie.
Yes, it's my favorite.
If you've watched the news and you've had conversations with folks, the insurance industry is kind of in a crisis area. Losses are considerably higher than they have been in history. There's lots of reasons for that. There's a lot of pressure on insurance companies for a variety of reasons. Some of those reasons we can't solve on this call. We certainly can't change the weather. The reality is we have more. The number of storms that come through is higher than it was in previous eras. The number and how ferocious those storms are is certainly an issue that again no one can control that. But there are things that you can do as a consumer that your agent can do can help you to kind of lower your exposures, but also how you react to certain things can really save you money in the long run. So I'd like to talk about that, but I think we start with what is insurance, because I think that's one of the things that people don't understand. And again, I get it. So insurance, very simply put, insurance is where you transfer a risk from yourself to another entity. So the most common reason for that is you can't afford to replace that asset. So for your home example, most of us cannot afford for our homes to be completely destroyed and then just rebuild it. And it doesn't cause us a huge financial setback. That's why we have insurance. But by insuring a home, you're transferring that risk to the insurance company. All right, the insurance company is going to take on that risk that if something happens that's insurable loss, that they're going to take on that financial burden on your behalf. So how that works is for the companies to be able to make any money at all, obviously they can't just insure one home, right? There's too much risk associated with just one home. They have to insure a large number of homes. In the United States, insurance is a state-by-state thing. It's not federalized. It's state-by-state. So depending on what state you're in, the insurance laws can differ, but most are pretty standard. But the most important thing to remember is you're part of an insurance pool in that state. So I go back to my example. You don't want to insure just one home. You want to insure several. Everybody listening to this, if you're in the state of Tennessee, then you're a part of the state of Tennessee insurance pool, which means whatever company you're with, you're lumped together with all of their insureds in that state. Everybody in the state of Tennessee with X company is in that pool. So they're trying to manage that pool, and they're collecting premiums for 100% of that pool, right? The amount that you're paying as a consumer for that insurance, they're collecting that from 100%, but they need a very small subset of that to actually have claims that need to be paid out. That's the only way kind of the economics of insurance works. Does that make sense, Willie?
That nailed it. Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, perfect. I want to talk about what insurance, kind of what it covers and what it doesn't cover. Insurance in its most basic form, simply put, insures you for a loss that is unexpected and sudden, right?
Oh, say it again.
Unexpected and sudden, Willie.
Unexpected and sudden.
So how that relates to an example would be roofs. You're in the roofing industry.
Absolutely.
A great way to kind of express that is your roof being 25 years old is not an insurance related problem. If there's no damage created by a storm or a sudden event, then it's simply being old. That's not an insurance claim. Insurance doesn't cover something for aging. It covers a sudden loss, typically related to hail, wind, that type of thing is what affects roofs. I can't key on that enough because we're going to talk about storm chasers in a minute. One of my least favorite topics to discuss.
Right.
But I'll get fired up to talk about it today. We're going to talk about that and how they're affecting things. But that's an important thing to remember. I can't state this enough. Your roof being old, if that's the only thing that's wrong with that roof, that claim will be denied every time.
Every time.
It just is because it's not a covered thing. It's not a covered peril. The peril that is covered though is that storm, that wind, that hail that affects the roof, that makes that roof fail, and its only purpose was just to shelter your home. I want to talk about that first, but I also want to talk about how roofs are approached by insurance companies. So different insurance companies, some insurance companies only offer one type of roof protection. Some only offer the other type of roof protection. And some have a blend that gives you the option. But there are two broad ways that insurance companies really approach the roof. And their initials, easy to remember, RCV. RCV is a more expensive policy to have. Typically not a tremendous amount of money difference, but it is the premium coverage to have because the way it operates is how most people would want their roof covered in a storm.
Absolutely.
It's actually the replacement cost value of that roof. So a real world example, regardless of the age of the roof, storm comes through, there's significant damage that needs to be repaired, the entire roof needs to be replaced. Replacement cost value simply means we're going to put a new roof on that house. And it's going to be covered by the insurance company at 100% minus your deductible. Reminder for those at home, the deductible is what you have to pay out of pocket before the insurance company pays. And that's a set amount that should be on your policy. So replacement cost value, again, is the most preferred way that I think most consumers, that's how they want the claim to go down, right? Is, hey, I have a $30,000 roof problem, and you're going to take care of the $30,000 problem minus my deductible. Boom, we're all good, right? The other way is ACV, actual cash value. And actual cash value has its place. There's a reason it's offered. I mean, it's offered to save you on premium. Your premiums, what you pay yearly for that insurance, especially in a state like Tennessee that has a lot of wind and hail damage, how much you pay for your policy is going to be impacted by how your roof is covered, but also how the deductible you have associated with wind and hail losses. Those two things are really going to play into that. Now, actual cash value, again, it has its place, but if you don't know you have actual cash value and you find out at a claim, it can be troublesome. It can be a pain point.
Absolutely.
So how actual cash value works is pretty simple. It's a little more complicated, obviously, than replacement cost value, but it's a scheduled payment. And it's based on how old your roof is. So example would be for Willie and I, so let's say we live on the same street. Our houses almost touch. They're so close because we're that close. And a storm comes through and it affects us in just about exactly the same way. So our roofs are damaged to the point where they need to be replaced. We both have actual cash value as the replacement type on our roofs through our insurance providers. And Willie has a 4-year-old roof and I have a 14-year-old roof. Well, he's going to get a larger amount of money assistance in terms of the financial resources that insurance companies going to put into his roof are greater than mine because by it being scheduled based on age, He has a newer roof than I do. It hasn't depreciated in value as much as mine. Does that make sense, Willie?
That you nailed it. Absolutely.
So I think, I can't stress enough knowing what kind of coverage you have, especially as it pertains to wind and hail losses and the roof in general. I think it's vital. I mean, I really think it is an important thing for any consumer to go into knowing exactly what they're up against in the case that those storms do happen. So I really appreciate you giving me a chance to talk about that. I think the big thing that I really want from this, guys, is I want to make sure I check my notes. I want you, if you're watching this podcast, and if you're watching it, God bless you.
We appreciate it.
Yeah. But if you're watching the podcast, I mean, the big thing I would like for you to do is have two approaches, kind of in your mind on for two different things, right? Well, number one is before the storm. We all know storms are coming. The reality is, in this part of the state of Tennessee, we have a tremendous amount of storms every March, April, May, and then we have another run that's vicious in September, October, November.
Yep.
And it's because tornadoes, that's the time, that's the season. So we're going to have those. There's going to be a chance that you're affected. Hopefully you won't be. But before the storm, I want you to do some things. Number one, I want you to know who your agent is. Know who your company is. Who do you have your insurance with? Believe it or not, there are a lot of folks don't. And if you don't, that's it. Again, it's a box you checked when you got your mortgage sometimes, and you just haven't thought about it since. Know who your company is. Know who insures you. Know who your agent is, and have a conversation with that agent and find out how your home is covered. Have them send you a declaration page. Specifically ask about the roof. How is the roof covered? And then specifically ask the question: if a storm comes through and I'm affected by a loss of any kind, really, what would you recommend I do? Because most agents that I know really want you to call them first. And the reason they want you to call them first is because one of the issues that we face in the insurance industry, one of the false inflations that we see in the industry is claims being filed that really should never have been filed.
Right.
They just shouldn't have. And there's lots of things that come into that. I mean, sometimes it's simply, a customer's lack of understanding, and those things happen. But a really big one during storm season is the propensity for companies from outside our community they just kind of pop up, and they're in the roofing industry, right?
Yes.
They're in the roofing industry.
The dreaded storm chasers.
The storm chasers, right? And I know a company like L&L doesn't want to spend a whole lot of time just bashing on storm chasers, but I'll bash on them for you.
I appreciate that.
I'm here to bash, boys. The reality is what they're doing is hurting everyone.
Yes.
It's hurting the consumer. It's hurting insurance companies. It's hurting L&L. It's hurting Willie. It's hurting me. Because what they're doing is they're coming in. They're creating a false demand. So they're knocking on doors unsolicited, right? These are door knockers. They're knocking on doors. They're unsolicited, and they're saying, a storm came through. They're stating something that's true. A storm came through. A storm came through. You were there, right? But then they're saying everybody in your neighborhood, or a large number of people in your neighborhood, have really got a lot of roof damage from that storm. Can I take a look at yours too? Well, that creates. It's only natural for you to be like, oh no, I certainly need somebody to look at that. And when they get up on the roof, they very rarely are going to come down and say you're solid, right?
Never.
And the reason for that is if you get up on I don't care who you are, if you get up on a 15-year-old roof, I don't care how good a roof it is and what good a shape it is, there are signs of wear and tear on a roof that's 15 years old. I mean, we live in an area where we have, the sun beats down and there's elements that create, cosmetic defects on a roof. And they're easy to exploit by taking a photo and saying, well, this is damage that you need to file an insurance claim for. And then when the customer files the insurance claim, they're on their own, whether or not it gets approved or not. So filing that insurance claim, we're going to talk about it in a few minutes, but filing that insurance claim, if it's not a legitimate claim, can be detrimental to you as a consumer and your insurability.
100%.
So it's very important that I really want you to approach it in a very simple way. If there's been a storm, I want you to do your due diligence, which is very simply put, something you can do there at the house. You walk around your property. If there's no telltale signs of damage,
those shingles on the ground.
Right, no shingles on the ground. There's just the eye test says I'm in good shape. I want you to see if there's spots, water spots on your ceiling that weren't there before, but from leakage, then yeah, there's a good chance you have a roof issue. If you don't have those things, there's a good chance you don't. So keep that in mind. But the main thing is don't. I would very professionally or diplomatically say, I've got a roofer that I trust, so I appreciate you letting me know that you've looked, you're looking out for my concerns. But I'm going to call him. But thank you for your time. All right, then call your agent, because if you call your agent, the agent is going to have an organization that they trust. In my case, it's L&L, it's Willie. But your agent is going to have somebody that he or she trusts, and is going to advise you to have that. They're happy to call them in most cases on your behalf and say, hey, my customer would like to have this looked at. They've got this telltale sign of roof damage, right? At that point, that trusted relationship, that organization that is here all the time, that does have an office in Murfreesboro, that's not a fly-by-night organization, they can advise the agent and the customer, this is what we're up against, and then the agent can walk the customer through, hey, this is how much the damage is or is not. This is what your deductible is. This is what the type of policy you have and how that's going to play out in the real world. If we move forward or if we opt to go a different direction, that's the most important thing you can do, because if you file a claim on a legitimate, there's a claim and it's legitimately a weather claim, guys, it just doesn't impact you that badly as a customer. That's part of the business that insurance companies are in. But if you file a claim and it gets denied because it's not legitimate, it really does affect your ability to be insured in the future. Yeah. Because there is a cost associated with it. I don't expect anybody to play violins for large insurance companies, or I'm not hosting a telethon for them or anything like that. I mean, I get it. But the reality is there is a cost associated with it. And organizations of any kind that are for profit, if they're losing money and they're having costs that they don't want to have, that are outside of normal business practices, they're going to pass those costs on to someone. And that someone's the consumer. It always is.
Every time.
I don't care what the organization is. So if you file claims and they're not legitimate claims, the cost associated with that is the call had to be taken. All the resources had to be lined up to have an adjuster come out and look at it, to meet up with your roofing person, to kind of talk through what everybody saw and what they didn't see. And then if it gets denied, all that money was spent for nothing. And the person who catches the brunt of that negative is going to be the customer.
Every time.
So we want to make sure if you file a claim, you want to have everything lined up to where, going in, it's going to be approved. And the best way you can do that is to take those simple steps. Do your own eyeball check. Don't listen to the guy that knocked on your door. Have a relationship with your agent so you can call them and say, what should I do? And then take that agent's advice. They're going to send a reputable contracting professional organization to come out there and take a look at it. Okay. So that's the big thing. I think one of the things I can't stress enough, again, I don't want to talk too much about these storm chasers, but they are an issue. And it's similar to shoplifting. I mean, I think everyone who shops at Walmart, Publix, wherever, you don't necessarily walk around thinking about the impact of shoplifting. But intuitively, that the cost associated with whatever product you're buying, whether it be dog food or sanitizer, hand sanitizer, whatever product you're buying, it's a little bit more expensive because people steal. We all know that, right?
Absolutely.
There's a cost to the consumer that's absorbed because there are losses that are not a part of normal business practice. The same thing is true here. If the reality is, these folks that are in this business of just door knocking, their goal is not to make sure that you have a good day. They're not
Right.
They're not there to help you. I mean, they're it's a numbers game. The reality is, to make it worth their while, they need 3 or 4 roof claims to be paid by an insurance company, and to get that number, they don't care how many are denied. Right? They're very rarely going to tell someone their roof is in good shape. Their job is to say, yeah, there's definitely some things here. File a claim, and we can get you taken care of. In 3 weeks from now, 4 weeks from now, next year, when you're up for renewal, when your insurability is either more expensive to you, or you're in a situation where your insurance company is non-renewing you, which means they're opting out. If those things happen to you because of this claim process that you went through for no reason, that company's not going to be here. And they're certainly not going to help you with the next steps and what that looks like. So I can't stress it enough. There's some simple things you can do now to know kind of what your insurance situation looks like, who your agent is, who to call if there's a problem, and how the insurance policy reads, what changes you can make in it if there's something in it that you don't like. Those are things you can do now. After the storm, what you can do is not panic. If there's telltale signs of damage, if there's real telltale signs of damage, most of the time and certainly don't take anyone's word for it that just knocked on your door, because, again, this is a fairly well-known scam.
And scam, that is a great word for that. So, Stacy, thank you so much for hitting on all those points. It's become a problem. I mean, it really has. Just in the last 5 weeks, we've just seen an uptick in calls coming in. And if I'm being 100% honest, 70% of the calls that we go to, they have no damage, which that's great. And we love telling customers, hey, there's no damage here or whatever, but there's also a cost to that of us going out and checking all that stuff. And that it's been a rather high cost the last couple of weeks, and it's all because somebody's knocking on your door, getting you stirred up, thinking that you have a problem, and at the end of the day, you do not. And it's unfortunate. And then you file those claims, and then, like you said, the next year you come up for renewal, and you could have a position where you're getting dropped by your insurance company. And so I think being educated in your policy and knowing your agent and having that relationship, really opens up some doors. And I greatly appreciate you taking the time to come help me educate everybody.
If I can make one more point, because I see this does happen to me occasionally, where if you do use a fly-by-night company and they do the work for you, and whether how good that work is, obviously it's going to be all over the map. You don't know, but a year from now, when there's that roof's failing because it wasn't installed properly, you really want to have a warranty. You want to know who to call to get that, because that's not an insurance thing. Nope. If your roof was put on a year ago and it starts to have issues that were related to shoddy workmanship, that is not an insurance issue. That is a warranty issue for your roof. So the more you can work with a local Rutherford County roofing professional that's been in business for a while, that has a warranty, the better off you are.
That is a great point, and I'm glad you brought that up, because install issue is not a warranty claim, and I can attest. I've been to several adjusters, what we call adjuster meetings, where I meet an adjuster out at a client's house, and I've stressed to the client that this is an install issue. Whoever did your roof, previously, unfortunately installed it incorrectly. And and then they're adamant that it's not, and that's a bummer.
That is a big bummer.
And then I meet the adjuster out, and the adjuster knows, because they're paid professionals as well, and they know within the first 20 minutes that this is an install problem. And then I have to go down and tell the customer off the roof and say, exactly what stress to you, this is an install problem. And nobody likes to have those conversations, when now you have a $30,000 problem, that's all on you, And so I think that's a great point to bring up, Stacy. Thank you.
Yeah, perfect. Well, thank you so much, man. It's
Absolutely.
awesome seeing
Thank
you.
you for coming, man.
All right,
I appreciate you taking the time.